Hey, good day, folks. Welcome to another episode of Andrew's Life. On this video, I'm going to be driving through more so the residential parts of Columbus, Georgia. As you guys saw, it's going to be an extremely long video, so, chop it up, watch whatever you can watch in one sitting, and then come back and watch the rest of it later. I did not want to break this up into two videos because I got a lot of other videos to put out. So I went on ahead and I put all this out on one video. So hopefully you guys can enjoy it, and for those of you that are looking to move to Columbus, this video, I feel, will at least give you a general idea of what the layout of Columbus is going to look like. Now on this video, I took a trip down to Columbus, Georgia about I want to say about a month and a half or so. I went down to Columbus, and obviously on this day it was overcast with a little bit of rain. So, but anyways, this was my first time going to Columbus, Georgia. And I will say, when I first got into the city limits of Columbus, I came in here from Phoenix City, Alabama, which is right next door. I will say, at first, when I got into the city limits, I was, to me, parts of the city reminded me a lot of the Midwest. Just the way parts of the city were. And maybe the fact that it was overcast and raining, it also reminded me of Indiana. Even though the weather here is a lot warmer than Indiana. And plus, they don't get snow like Indiana. So yeah, when I first got here, it reminded me a little bit of Indiana. And then as I proceeded to drive through the city and check out the different neighborhoods in the city, and then another thing I want to point out is I've already made another video of Columbus about a month and a half or so ago. That video covers the downtown area and some of the surrounding communities. On this video, I'm going to be driving out a little more. And I would say on this video, I'm going to primarily be north and south. I'm just guessing what side of town. I know towards the end of the video, I'm going to be on the northern end of Columbus. But I think for the rest of the video, I'm probably going to spend a considerable time in the south, and also I'm going to be driving through the hood too. And off the top of my head, I don't know exactly what side of town that you guys consider that side of town. Maybe you can leave a comment in the comment section about that. So basically on this video, I'm going to be driving north and south, on the north end, then on the south end, then on the north end. And I think at some point I'll probably return back to the south end and also drive through the hood as well. And to be completely honest with you people, there were areas that I've driven through more than once because either A, I got lost and I kind of forgot where I've already drove to, and two, there were certain areas that I wanted to check out more than once. Because honestly, when I started driving through the city and I started seeing some of the more desirable parts of the city, even though I've told you guys ever since the creation of this channel a couple of years ago that I was not a city person, there was a part of me that kind of thought, okay, well, can I live in Columbus? Can I move down here to Columbus? Obviously, Columbus is a city, but it's not too big of a city. And there's also parts of this, and honestly, I'm going to say that Columbus, Georgia is the Georgia version of Montgomery, Alabama. I'm going to say it flat out because it is. Because after I got done doing this video, I think a couple of weeks later, I drove to Montgomery, Alabama, and I did a video there, which is also on this channel as well. And now there are certain things I like about Columbus better than Montgomery. Now, although I do think that Columbus has a lot of similarities to Montgomery in terms of the general layout of the city, at the same time, there are things about Columbus I like better compared to Montgomery. Like, for starters, I think Columbus has a much nicer downtown area compared to Montgomery. And when I first started driving through Columbus on my last video, I was thinking, wow, this city is a lot better than Montgomery. But then as I continued my Columbus videos and I continued my tour through the city, I began to see a lot of similarities to Montgomery, Alabama. And I would say, like many other metro areas, you got your parts of the city that are better than the other part of the city. I mean, that's how it is in Montgomery, and that's how it is here in Columbus, and that's how it is in many other metro areas. Now, I'm going to tell you guys straight up that personally, if anybody were to come into the comment section and ask me where in Columbus they should move to, personally, my first choice would be to move to the northern end of the city, which is towards the airport. If you don't find anything you want there, my second choice would be to check out the historic district, which I drove through that area on my last video I made of Columbus, Georgia. Now, as far as it goes for the south end of the city, I'm not, I notice when I go through the south end of the city, there's a lot of houses and businesses that have bars on the window. And, for those of you that have watched this channel for any length of time, you know how I feel about that. I'm going to remind you guys again, for those of you that are new, my opinion is whenever I drive through a neighborhood and I see a neighborhood to where there's a substantial amount of houses or bars on the window, to me, the residents of that area clearly feel, clearly there's enough concern in terms of crime that people feel it necessary to protect their house, which is why you got bars on the window. That's how I look at it. So I'm thinking, as an outsider who's not from Columbus or a city like Columbus, when I drive through your area and I see that you got, and I see a bunch of bars on the window, to me, it's an automatic turnoff. It just goes to tell me right away that I probably shouldn't move there. I probably should look elsewhere. Or if I want to live in Columbus, I should probably be prepared to pay a little more for housing and move to an area that's a little better. I'm not talking down on people that are down on their luck and they gotta live where they gotta live. For those of you that live in those areas that I'm discussing, I'm not talking down on you folks. I'm just saying I'm saying personally for me, I would be a little leery of living in a community where a substantial amount of homes have bars on the window. Because to be quite frank, that could be a fire hazard. Because, if your house catches on fire, how do you get out? And that's another concern I would have. So if my thing is, if I have to put bars on my windows to protect my stuff and possibly even protect myself from home invasion, then you know what? I'd rather not even invest my money in living in that neighborhood. That's just how I feel. And I noticed on the south end of Columbus, there were a lot of bars on the windows. I mean, granted, you had a lot of nice looking houses over there. You also had a lot of yards that didn't even look too bad. But then when I kept on seeing a bunch of bars on the window, it just turned me off about living in that part of Columbus. Because the south end of this city, I mean, it's not the hood necessarily. It's not the hood, but like I said, I would be a little leery of living on that side of the city just due to what I saw. So for that matter, I would say if you're wanting to live in the city of Columbus, I would suggest to check out the north end or check out the historic district. And if there's any other place in Columbus that might be half decent, for those of you that are familiar with Columbus, feel free to drop a comment below. Now I do, like I told you at the beginning of the video, I do like the layout of downtown Columbus. I think downtown Columbus has a much better layout than downtown Montgomery, Alabama. I mean, downtown Columbus to me seems like it could be a very fun and at the same time relaxing place to hang out at on my downtime if I ever were to move to Columbus, which honestly, I don't know if I'm gonna come down here to live. I'm not sure. I mean, I would need to come down here at least a few more times and just thoroughly check things out. So at this point, I'm not gonna say, at this point, I probably wouldn't move to Columbus because because I'm not really into the city life. But at the same time, the reason why I thought about Columbus, at least during the time that I recorded this video, and probably for a few weeks after the fact, is because, like right now, I live in a small rural community here in Alabama, where I live, the town is so small that I gotta drive 15 minutes to the closest city. So, for even my basics. Like if I want to do grocery shopping, I gotta drive 15 minutes to get all that done. And as far as a decent mechanic to service my vehicles, all that is in the town that's 15 minutes away from where I live. As for if I lived in the city, everything's right at my fingertips. I don't have to do a bunch of driving around. And given the fact that I do a fair amount of traveling, another thing I think about is if I needed to, let's say, get to the airport so I can fly somewhere. If I'm living in the metro, all I gotta do is catch the city bus, and the city bus will take me to the airport. Or worst scenario, I can pay a little extra money and get a taxi to take me to the airport, which would actually be a little quicker than the bus. So those are two ways that I can get to where I need to get to in the event that my vehicles, for whatever reason, are disabled. I can use the city bus, or I can get a taxi cab. And one thing was I found out in some of the in small town living is when it comes to public transportation, even when it comes to looking for a taxi, I would say in more cases than I realized, you can just hang it up. A lot of these small towns that I've lived in don't even have taxi services available. I mean, clearly they have no public transportation, and even when it comes to taxi services, they don't. Most of these small communities don't have that either. So if you have a vehicle that's disabled, I mean, yeah, you can get a tow truck, and you can tow it to whatever mechanic that you want to tow it to. But then the question becomes, how do you get back home? Or how do you get back to the mechanic to pick up your vehicle once they get done servicing your vehicle? How do you get stuff done? How do you go to work if your vehicle is disabled? How do you even get to a car rental agency in the event that you need to rent a vehicle? I mean, there's just a lot of those type of things that tend to come up every so often. That has happened to me a few times. Cause you got a lot of people that talk about they want to leave the city, they want to move to the country, they want this quiet world life, blah blah blah. You know what? I ain't mad at you. That, you know, I felt the same way. But you know, and I also, I've also made a video, I want to say probably a couple of months or so ago, breaking down what, I forgot exactly what the video was called, but basically it breaks down what to prepare yourself for if you're moving out in the country. So I've discussed that in some detail on that video about a month or so ago. But that video is on this channel. So, you know, due to some of the challenges of living the world small town life / country life that I have encountered the last year and a half or so, when I drive into a city, there's a part of me that comes alive because I'm thinking, okay, if I'm living in the city, even if I don't know anybody, I can still get everything done that I need to get done. Like if any of my vehicles get disabled, I can take care of all that without having to rely on somebody to help me out. And also, I tend to find it a little easier to meet people when I'm living in the city than if I'm living somewhere in some small rural community. Now, I honestly thought that it would be the other way around, but I guess that's just me being in my fantasy, if you will. So, you know, even though I don't consider myself to be a city person, at the same time, there's certain things that the city has to offer which smaller communities simply do not have to offer, such as public transportation. And like I said, I find it a little easier to meet people and to form friendships when I'm living in a more populated area. Now, let's not get it twisted. If I'm trying to move to Chicago or Atlanta, hell no. And honestly, I would even be okay with living in a small city. But, you know, so far, a lot of your smaller cities down here in the deep south have not been up to snuff for me. I mean, I've looked into, you know, like I did, I mean, last week I just got back from traveling across the country. I mean, mainly I traveled up north and through the Midwest. And, and honestly, I miss I miss Indiana because I formed some very meaningful relationships in Indiana. I mean, my friends in Indiana, some of them are like family. Even though I may have been raised up in Ohio, I consider Indiana my home. I consider Indiana more my home than Ohio. So in that regard, I miss Indiana. But then there's another part of me that enjoys being somewhere where the weather is warmer, where I don't have to deal with a bunch of snow, if any at all. And I also enjoy being somewhere to where, hey, if I want to go to the beach, if I want to enjoy, let's say, the golf, I'm only a few hours away. Which is one of the things that I thought about as I took this trip down here to Western Georgia to record these videos. Because at the same time I was recording these videos, I also had one eye open of, okay, if I were to move here to Georgia, where in Georgia would I want to live? And although I currently live in small town Alabama, which, there's certain aspects about where I live right now which I do like and I do appreciate. I mean, I appreciate the fact that where I live is safe and I don't have to worry about people messing with my stuff. I don't have to worry about getting carjacked or anything crazy like that. So I appreciate all that. I mean, given the amount of traveling that I do, wherever I choose to live, I need to have at least some type of assurance that if I go somewhere for 2-3 weeks, like I did just recently, when I come back home, everything is going to be how I left it. I'm not going to come back home and my windows busted, doors kicked in, people done broke in, and they done stripped my house of whatever they wanted to take. And that's the thing which unfortunately happens in some of your larger cities, even in some of your mid-sized cities. Those are the type of things that are more prone to happen than in a smaller community. So with that being said, if I were to move to the metro, and another thing about the metro which I don't really care for is traffic. Now, the city of Columbus doesn't have bad traffic. Compared to other cities, Columbus traffic is not that bad. However, I'm not a fan of traffic. I mean, I understand that when I record these videos, there's going to be an element of traffic that I'm going to have to deal with. But when I'm just at home, just relaxing, just getting stuff done on my downtime, I really don't want to have to deal with traffic. I don't want to have to drive or be stuck in a 45-minute traffic for a destination that should only take me, let's say, 15 minutes to get to. And I also looked up the crime data in Columbus. Now, a lot of people talk about how bad the crime is in Montgomery, Alabama. Now, when I looked at the crime data for here in Columbus, I noticed that the crime numbers in Columbus were the same as the crime numbers in Montgomery. And when I did these Columbus videos, I also noticed that when it comes to the general setup of your neighborhoods, how do I say this? Now, the setup here in Columbus is a little better than Montgomery's setup. I think the setup here in Columbus is a little neater compared to Montgomery. I'll say that. But at the same time, it's kind of like when you go to Montgomery, Alabama. How do I explain this? Like when you go to Montgomery, Alabama, there'll be a lot of, I would say in Montgomery, Alabama, the majority of the city that you drive through, many of those neighborhoods you're gonna find that many of those neighborhoods the houses are gonna have bars on the window. So some of the stuff I saw in Montgomery, which I didn't like, which was the main reason why I chose to not move to the city of Montgomery, because when I first came down here to Alabama, I was contemplating on living in the city of Montgomery. Because I thought for once, you know what, it'll be nice to be in the city. It'll be nice to be close to everything. I won't have to drive far for anything. And it might be a little easier for me to make a couple of good friends. But then when I began to drive around Montgomery and I began to look at houses that were within my price range, I didn't like what I saw. Like in terms of the neighborhood, I didn't like what I saw. And I noticed when I drive around Columbus, it's basically the same stuff. I would say most of this city, you're gonna find that people have bars on their windows, on their homes. Which, like I told you, I'm not a fan of that. I understand people gotta do what they gotta do to be safe and to stay safe. But like I said, and I can't emphasize this enough, if I gotta have bars on my window to be safe, then I'd rather not live in the area. That's just me. And that's the main thing that would keep me from moving to Columbus, is the thought of that. And even when it comes to living in North Columbus, when I drove down here to make this video, I would say I was on the MLS, I want to say maybe a couple of weeks or so ago, looking at houses on this side of Columbus. And the two houses that I found were way beyond my price range. There's another house that was within my price range, but it was a fixer-upper. And another thing that might keep me from moving here to Columbus is also the fact that, like where I live right now, I do enjoy having a larger lot and not being so close to my neighbors that when I look outside my window, I can see inside their window. So I enjoy that. As for if I move back to the city, I wouldn't have that no more. I would be back to living in an area, something like this, where your houses are close together, and if you're lucky, you might be able to grab up something that sits on maybe a quarter of an acre. As for right now, I have about an acre. So I think about those things too. And I have had bad luck finding that happy middle ground, and at the same time staying within my price range. So, at this point, there's a good chance I might just stay right where I'm at. There's a good chance. But like I said, I got at least one eye open for, something that might be a better fit for my needs and still satisfy most of my wants when it comes to housing. Now these houses, they look good. They're newer, they look nice. I'm gonna guess that these houses were probably built within the last 10 years or so. Just by looking around, a lot of these houses, they probably, I would say they were probably sitting on a quarter of an acre at the best. But look how close they are to each other. At least to me, they're close together. And another thing that I think about is, just like somebody like myself can easily get, like, let's say I lived in this particular neighborhood. I mean, if I really wanted to, I can jump in my vehicle and I can drive right to the hood. No problem. And I also realize that people who be in the hood, they can drive right over here. In fact, anymore, there's been a uptick in people who live in this type of a neighborhood getting victimized when it comes to home invasions and things of that nature. Because you got a few people that, yeah, they might live in the hood. You know, they may not, you know, they might live in the hood. And in many ways, they may not be the brightest light bulb in the box. But at the same time, they're smart enough to understand that if they try to break into someone's house in the hood, that individual's going to probably have a gun and they're going to shoot them. And why would anybody want to risk all that? And then at the end of the day, you walk away and don't even get nothing because everybody around that particular area is probably broke. As where you come to an area like this, and I'm not saying people here are wealthy and loaded with money, but the typical person that might live in the hood or whatever, they might come into a community like this and be like, man, this is a nice community. And they might assume that people here have more than they do in the hood. So if they're going to break into someone's home, they're going to go to an area that they assume people are doing better. And they're thinking, okay, well, if I come over here and I break into a house, you know, these people over here in some of these nicer areas are probably not going to be prepared to deal with somebody like me. So if I break into a house around here, then, you know, I can probably get away with much more stuff, and the stuff that I get will be more valuable. But, of course, for those of you that are watching this video and you're thinking about breaking into someone's house because you assume because the area you want to come into a nicer area and you want to victimize someone, I mean, you know, obvious. I'm gonna tell you guys right now, don't even try it, because there's a lot of people who live in these nice areas that, yeah, they do have a peace, and they will happily use it on you if you force their hand. And there's been more cases to where exactly that has happened. So, for those of you that are criminal minded and you're thinking about doing something you shouldn't be doing, take my advice, don't do it. You know, get you a second, if you're hard up on money, get you a second job, get your education up, do what you gotta do legally. I'm just, you know, yeah, don't do it. I'm just talking out loud of what I believe people who are criminal minded would think. And I know for some of you, I might be thinking a little too deep into the situation. Maybe I am. But I like to be safe. I like to be safer than sorry. That has always been my philosophy. Like, cause to me, when you're getting ready to spend, you know, $200,000+ on a house, or even, I don't give a crap if you're gonna spend $75 on a house, Rather you take out a mortgage or you pay cash, however you go about buying this house, any which way you cut it, it's going to be a ton of your hard work and money going in on your home. I mean, because to me, your home is supposed to be your safe haven from the rest of the world. So I'm thinking, okay, well, I don't want to just rush out here and buy something thinking that it's going to be a-okay, and then I find out the hard way and the expensive way, it isn't. I mean, I truly want my home to be my safe haven, which has been one of the main reasons why I'm probably not going to move to any major city, not even your mid-sized ones, such as Columbus or Montgomery, Alabama, or Fort Wayne, Indiana. I mean, you know, I'm just saying, if I do relocate, there's a good chance I'm going to probably end up in a smaller city, not a major metro area like this one. Like right now, I'm driving through the south end of Columbus, and in a little bit, I'll be on the north end of the city. So yeah, like I said, if you're gonna live in Columbus, you know, my suggestion is either live on the north end towards the airport, or I think the historic district is decent as well. And if you have a little bit of money, I would also suggest that you drive over to LaGrange and check that out. LaGrange, Georgia, that is. I got that video on this channel too, so feel free to check it out. Alright folks, I don't know what else to say. I'm going to let you guys enjoy the rest of the video. Hopefully you guys got something out of what I was talking about. I mean, I realized I didn't talk specifically about Columbus the whole time. I did a lot of talking about just my thoughts. So hopefully you got something out of that. So, as always, I thank every last one of you for tuning in to another episode of Andrew's Life. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, consider doing that, because I will be putting out a lot more videos, as I am now doing a lot more traveling. And, you know, give these videos thumbs up, help with the YouTube algorithm. I would appreciate that as well. And y'all have a blessed one, and I'll see you on the next one.